Okay, let's unpack this. Picture this. One of the richest people on the entire planet. Sitting right there is the second wealthiest individual in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
He's the quiet engine behind a global fashion brand, Zara, a name you see on shopping bags and storefronts in every major city, instantly recognizable everywhere.
Hmm.
And yet, well, you've almost certainly never seen his face.
Right. Never.
He's never given a public interview. He actively, intentionally disappears from the public eye. In a world absolutely obsessed with personal brands, with constant visibility through social media, with entrepreneurs becoming celebrities, how is that level of anonymity even remotely possible?
It's a genuine anomaly, isn't it? We're so accustomed to the modern billionaire archetype, the Elon Musk's tweeting constantly, the Jeff Bezos is launching rockets and buying newspapers.
Yeah, very
Like,
public figure.
exactly. Public figures whose faces are as well known as the logos of their companies. Amancio Ortega, the founder of Zara and the colossal Inditex Group, is the complete counterpoint to that. He amassed this incredible fortune and built this global empire operating almost entirely in the shadows. The sources you've shared really emphasize this deliberate, almost radical retreat from the spotlight.
Absolutely. It forces you to ask, was this just shyness, or was it a deeply ingrained, powerful strategy?
A good question.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really pull apart the sources you've provided us about Ortega and the mechanics of Zara. We want to get beyond the mystery and understand the actual why and the how.
Mm-hmm.
What were the specific hidden strategies, the leadership mindset, and even the personal habits that allowed him to build this retail giant while remaining essentially a ghost in the background?
Yeah.
We're going to explore how this silence wasn't an absence of power, but a source of it, and how for Ortega, ruthless, relentless efficiency always trumped public exposure and ego.
Precisely. The materials give us a truly fascinating look behind that opaque curtain. We'll dig into his remarkably humble origins, the unique operating system that makes Zara run at its signature lightning speed, the very distinct management culture he fostered, and the underlying personal philosophy that shaped not just his life, but the very DNA of his company. It's a story of building big by staying small, in a way.
Okay, let's dive in and start with that extraordinary level of wealth just sitting right next to his invisibility.
Right. The numbers alone are staggering, and the sources are clear on his status. As of June 2025, Amancio Ortega's net worth is estimated at around $124 billion.
Wow.
That places him firmly among the top 10 wealthiest individuals globally. Our sources rank him specifically as the ninth richest person in the world.
Right, okay.
And within Europe, he stands as the second wealthiest, just behind the luxury titan Bernard Arnault of LVMH. So in terms of pure financial power, he's absolutely in that top tier alongside names that dominate global headlines.
Yet, while those other figures are media staples, Ortega is nowhere to be seen, literally.
The contrast couldn't be more stark, could it? While you have Musk seemingly tweeting from dawn till dusk, launching rockets with live broadcasts,
Right, constant updates.
and Bezos becoming a major media owner, Ortega operates in a parallel universe of intense discretion. The sources really underline the almost extreme level of secrecy surrounding him for decades. Can you imagine building a company that is a household name in hundreds of countries, and your photo isn't even published publicly until 1999?
1999. That's just mind-boggling in the age of pervasive photography and media.
It truly is. And even when Inditex eventually went public in 2001, an event that inherently demands some level of public face, Ortega's appearance was fleeting, minimal.
Just a quick appearance.
Reportedly, yes, a brief appearance, but he pointedly didn't use it as an opportunity for interviews or to grandstand. The sources suggest this wasn't just diffidence, it was a conscious choice. His absence from the public narrative became, ironically, a signature element of his identity as a leader.
It's almost an anti-brand in itself. So this wasn't just a personal preference. The sources argue this secrecy was a deliberate, calculated business strategy.
Absolutely. The core argument from the materials is that silence is strategy for Ortega. He holds a fundamental belief that media attention, public adoration, or even public criticism bring nothing but unnecessary distraction.
Just noise.
Just noise. And worse, they can foster ego. He viewed these external factors, this focus on personality or public image, as actively detrimental to running the kind of tight, incredibly high-speed operation that Zara needed to be.
While competitors and other moguls were focused on building their personal brand, his focus was laser sharp on the internal machine.
Exactly. The sources stress that while others were cultivating fame and a public image, Ortega was focusing entirely on the absolute fundamentals of the business: the quality and relevance of the product, the speed at which it could be designed, produced, and delivered, and the flawless execution of every single step in that process.
Everything else was secondary.
Completely. The noise from the outside world, the clamor for interviews, the desire for public validation or commentary wasn't just something he wasn't interested in. The sources portray it as something he actively avoided because it would divert energy from the intense internal focus required to make Zara work.
And his personal life seems to be a direct reflection of this philosophy of intense focus and, well, lack of external fuss.
Totally. The materials paint a picture of a lifestyle that is remarkably Spartan for someone of his immense wealth. He reportedly maintains an extremely simple daily routine and personal style.
Like a uniform.
Pretty much. The sources describe him wearing the same outfit day after day. A simple navy blazer, a white shirt, gray trousers. You won't see him in designer suits, no ties, no flashy luxury watch. This isn't just a habit. It's presented in the sources as a manifestation of his focus.
Minimalist to the extreme, even in his clothing.
Yes, and it extends to his other habits. He's said to drive modest cars, not a fleet of supercars.
Ah.
He deliberately avoids the glitzy, high society events that you'd expect a billionaire of his stature to attend.
No galas, no red carpets.
None of that. And perhaps one of the most telling details the sources mention is that he reportedly still lives in the same unpretentious apartment in La Coruña, the city in northwestern Spain, where he started his very first humble shop decades ago.
Living in the same place where it all began. That speaks volumes about staying grounded.
It truly does. It's a powerful symbol of his rootedness and his focus on the core, the foundation, rather than the outward trappings of success. And the sources suggest there's an even more fundamental strategic reason behind this intense desire for invisibility beyond just avoiding distraction and ego.
Okay, and that is?
Control. Plain and simple. Control. By remaining out of the spotlight, by not having his personality or face tied to the brand narrative, Ortega maintained immense control.
How so?
Well, less attention on him meant he had greater freedom and power to shape how the business operated internally without external pressure or public opinion influencing decisions. It also meant that the focus remained squarely where he wanted it, on the product, the efficiency, the speed, the store experience. He didn't want to be the story. The Zara system was the story he wanted to tell.
So he removed himself as a potential vulnerability or distraction for the business. Makes sense.
Exactly. And the sources demonstrate how spectacularly the strategy worked. As Zara expanded across continents in the early 2000s and beyond, becoming a dominant force in global retail, Ortega remained largely unknown to the vast majority of the public. He was, as some reports describe him, the ghost behind the empire's astonishing rapid expansion.
It's such a powerful counter-narrative to today's business world where building a huge personal following and broadcasting your every move is often seen as essential for entrepreneurial success.
It really is. Where other entrepreneurs were chasing likes and followers and crafting carefully curated personal brands, Ortega was chasing microseconds of efficiency and building an unparalleled supply chain infrastructure.
Different priorities entirely.
Totally. Where others were trying to shout their message at the market, he was quietly and intently listening to the sales data, to the feedback from his store managers on the ground, to the actual desires of the customers walking into the stores.
The core idea here isn't just that he was a private person. It's that his invisibility was a calculated, potent, strategic choice. It's a masterclass in extreme focus and discipline, and that intense discipline is directly linked to the speed and success of Zara.
It was the absolute bedrock, and to truly understand the origins of that discipline and that focus, we need to look at where he came from.
Which, as you mentioned, was a very different world than the one he would come to dominate.
Miles away. Amancio Ortega was born in 1936 in Busdongo de Arbas, a small village in the province of León, but his family soon moved to Galicia in northwestern Spain. His father worked for the railway, and the sources indicate that the family lived modestly. Resources were scarce. This was not an environment of privilege or connections in the fashion world.
And this led him to leave formal education at a very young age to contribute to the household, right?
Yes, the sources highlight this crucial turning point. He left school early, at just 14 years old, specifically to help support his family financially. His first job was as a delivery boy in a local shirt shop in La Coruña called Gagala.
Just a delivery boy.
Right. This wasn't the height of fashion. It was a practical, hands-on introduction to the garment trade.
So his introduction to clothing wasn't through design schools or marketing, but through the very physical process of making and selling.
Exactly. From the shirt shop, he moved on to work in a tailor shop. Here, the sources suggest, he began to learn the fundamental craft, the meticulous cutting of fabric, the sewing techniques, the actual construction of garments.
The nuts and bolts.
The real nuts and bolts. But more importantly, working in this environment, he was exposed to the operational side. He saw the importance of timing, how long each step took. He learned about the flow of materials, getting the right fabric and trims at the right time. He understood the workflow of taking a concept through production to a finished product.
He was learning the mechanics of the industry from the ground up.
Precisely. And crucially, while learning the craft, he was also observing the inherent slowness and inefficiencies of the traditional fashion cycle firsthand. Orders from retailers would take months to process and fulfill.
Months.
Months. If a mistake was made in production or if customer preferences shifted, the cost was enormous because so much time and material were invested upfront. He saw the disconnect between production speed and changing demand.
He identified the central problem that his future business would solve.
Yes, that was the critical insight forged in those early years. He saw how slow the system was. By his early 20s, he took these insights and, along with his siblings and his future wife, Rosalia Mera, started a small garment business focused on making simpler items like bathrobes and housecoats.
Okay, so starting small, was this business different from the start?
Well, the sources point to a key strategic decision early on. They didn't just manufacture, they took on the distribution themselves, delivering their products directly to the small shops and retailers who would sell them.
Cutting out the middleman.
Exactly. This bypassed layers of middlemen. And this direct connection gave Ortega something incredibly valuable, firsthand. Unfiltered access to retail demand and customer feedback. He was hearing directly from the shopkeepers about what was selling, what customers were asking for, what colors or styles were popular right now. This direct line to the market was an anomaly in the industry at the time and became the bedrock of his future data-driven approach.
So he had production insight from the tailor shop and market insight from direct distribution. That sounds like the perfect foundation for Zara.
It absolutely set the stage. Building on this experience and these insights, in 1975, at the age of 39, he opened the first Zara store in La Coruña. His vision, while seemingly simple, was disruptive for the era. Take inspiration from the latest trends seen on high-fashion runways or in magazines, produce similar styles, but offer them at affordable prices, and most importantly, get them into stores dramatically faster than any competitor.
Instead of the traditional model of predicting trends 6 months to a year in advance.
Ortega aimed to react to them almost instantly. The goal was to plan production and new collections not seasons ahead, but in near real time, based on what customers were actually buying and asking for now.
That's a huge shift. How did he achieve that speed?
To achieve this unprecedented speed from day one, the sources emphasize his radical decision to integrate the supply chain. Unlike most fashion brands that outsourced manufacturing entirely, Ortega kept a significant portion of design, production, and distribution tightly controlled and geographically close, primarily in Spain and neighboring regions.
That direct control was essential for speed.
Crucial. The sources highlight that this vertical integration and proximity allowed Zara to shrink the time it took from spotting a trend or developing a new design concept to having the finished garment on the racks in a store to an almost unbelievable 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks?
Yeah. In the 1980s, when typical lead times for fashion might be 6 to 9 months, this was a fundamental revolution. It didn't just disrupt the model, it blew it apart.
And this initial success led to the formation of the larger company.
Yes, in 1985, he formalized the parent company, Inditex, or Industria de Diseño Textil. This became the holding company for Zara's expansion and eventually other brands. From that single shop and initial small business, Inditex began a quiet but incredibly rapid expansion, growing from a successful regional Spanish retailer into the global behemoth it is today, operating thousands of stores in over 200 markets worldwide.
And by the time Inditex went public in 2001, his quiet, disciplined approach had already made him the wealthiest person in Spain.
That's correct. And as we've seen, that wealth has only continued to grow, solidifying his position as one of the world's richest. But the story isn't just about the accumulation of wealth, it's about the extraordinary method he used to get there.
Right.
There was no typical entrepreneurial playbook, no flashy launches, no extensive press interviews, no Silicon Valley-style hype. It was simply relentless, meticulous focus on the mechanics of the business, perfecting operations, maximizing speed, and scaling that hard-won efficiency globally.
It sounds like he took the core lessons he learned in the tailor shop, the importance of timing, materials, workflow, and applied them on an industrial global scale.
That's exactly what the sources convey. He understood inherently from his early experience that the challenge in fashion wasn't necessarily about being the most avant-garde designer or having the biggest marketing budget. It was about understanding and meeting customer demand faster and more effectively than anyone else. This mindset, born from those humble beginnings and refined through direct interaction with the market, became the operational philosophy for the most efficient fashion machine the world has ever seen.
And that machine, built on speed and precision, is the heart of Zara's success. Let's talk about how it works.
Absolutely. Zara, at its core, is a logistical masterpiece. It's a system engineered for speed, built entirely around Ortega's foundational belief that in the unpredictable world of fashion, speed is the ultimate competitive advantage.
So how does this fast fashion machine actually operate on a day-to-day basis? How does it differ from, say, a traditional brand?
Well, it completely flips the traditional fashion model on its head. The standard approach, as we touched on, involves designers creating collections months, sometimes over half a year, in advance.
Right, they're forecasting way out.
Exactly. Then, companies commit to producing large quantities of these designs, essentially making a massive high-stakes gamble on what they hope customers will want when the season arrives. If they guess wrong, they're left with huge amounts of unsold inventory.
Which leads to markdowns and losses. Big sales.
Exactly. Zara avoids this gamble through what the sources describe as a highly responsive real-time feedback loop. The entire supply chain isn't driven by a designer's vision for 6 months from now. It starts with immediate data from the front lines specifically, from the store managers around the world.
Okay, so what kind of data are the store managers sending back? Is it just sales numbers?
It's much more than that. It's daily updates on what items are flying off the shelves, yes, but also what styles customers are asking for but aren't finding, what items are being tried on repeatedly but not bought.
Ah, that's interesting, the try but don't buy.
Right, that might indicate a fit or price issue. They even send observational notes about how customers are reacting to displays. This granular, real-time feedback from over 7,000 stores globally flows directly back to headquarters in La Coruña.
And this data goes straight to the design and production teams. No layers in between.
Directly. And this is where the speed advantage becomes almost unbelievable. The sources highlight that Zara can take a new concept, perhaps inspired by a street-style trend spotted in Paris, or a surge in demand for a specific color reported by stores in Tokyo, and move it from the drawing board to finished production and shipping in as little as 2 weeks.
2 weeks from idea to in-store. That's genuinely astonishing in any manufacturing industry, let alone fashion.
It was revolutionary when they perfected it. And they don't just do this occasionally. Zara is famous for releasing new items twice a week, every Monday and Thursday.
Twice a week.
Yeah. This constant influx of fresh styles means the store inventory is in a state of perpetual evolution.
This requires an incredibly integrated and agile production setup. You mentioned proximity earlier.
Absolutely. To maintain this speed, Inditex invested heavily in controlling its supply chain, choosing proximity over simply seeking the lowest labor costs globally. The sources note that over 50% of Zara's production still takes place near its headquarters in Spain, or in close-by countries like Portugal and Morocco.
Okay.
While this might be more expensive on a per-item basis than manufacturing solely in distant countries, the speed advantage it provides in cutting lead times is, for Zara, priceless.
So they're willing to pay a premium for speed and responsiveness. That's the calculation.
That's the trade-off, and it's one Ortega fundamentally understood was necessary. This system also allows for incredible flexibility and iteration. The sources mention that Zara's design teams are prolific, creating perhaps as many as 40,000 unique designs in a year.
40,000 designs.
Yeah, but they are highly selective, only putting about 12,000 into production. This high volume of initial concepts allows them to quickly prototype, test ideas, and move forward only with the designs that show the most promise based on their early feedback mechanisms.
And how does this speed and flexibility affect their inventory management? Less stock sitting around.
It allows them to operate on a highly efficient, modified, just-in-time inventory system. Instead of shipping massive quantities of each design, they send smaller batches to stores more frequently. Restocking decisions are made based on that continuous flow of real-time sales data.
Right. So what are the benefits there?
This model has several critical benefits. First, Zara minimizes the risk of overproducing and being stuck with huge piles of unsold clothes.
Less wasted money on stock that doesn't sell.
Yeah.
less waste overall.
Exactly. Second, and this is a key psychological factor the sources highlight, it creates a powerful sense of urgency for the customer. Because new items arrive constantly and in limited quantities, shoppers know that if they see something they like today, it might very well be gone by their next visit.
You can't wait around, you have to buy it now. FOMO, basically.
Precisely. Fear of missing out, weaponized for retail. This built-in scarcity and rapid rotation train customers to visit Zara stores much more frequently than they might visit traditional retailers. Some loyal customers visit multiple times a month just to see what's new. The inventory itself becomes the draw.
And how do they promote this constant influx of new items? They're famously low on traditional advertising, aren't they?
They are. This is another of Ortega's counterintuitive yet highly effective strategies. The sources are quite clear. Zara spends an exceptionally low amount on advertising compared to its competitors.
How low are we talking?
Financial data from late 2024 confirms this hasn't changed. They consistently spend less than 0.3% of their revenue on advertising.
0.3%.
Right. Contrast that with competitors like H&M or Gap, who might spend anywhere from 3% to 5%.
That's an order of magnitude difference in marketing spend. It's huge.
It's enormous. And the question is, if you're not advertising, how are you building a global brand and driving sales? The sources explain that Zara's advertising is primarily its investment in prime real estate.
Ah, the store locations.
Exactly. They secure flagship store locations in the most expensive, highest foot traffic areas of major cities, worldwide Fifth Avenue in New York, Oxford Street in London, the Champs-Élysées in Paris, prominent spots in Milan, Tokyo, Shanghai.
So the physical presence of the store is the advertisement. The location itself says everything.
That's exactly how the sources frame it. Being located in these prestigious spots signals the brand's status and quality more effectively, in Ortega's view, than traditional advertising ever could. The sheer volume of foot traffic in these locations provides natural, powerful exposure. This lean approach to marketing frees up massive amounts of capital that Zara can then reinvest back into its core operational strengths, its logistics, its technology, its speed.
And technology plays a critical role in connecting the stores to the production machine, I imagine.
Absolutely. Every Zara store is connected directly to headquarters through a sophisticated proprietary software system. This provides real-time data on every sale, every item's inventory level, globally. This flow of information allows them to not only track stock, but, more importantly, to spot emerging trends or shifts in demand across different regions incredibly quickly.
So it's not just relying on algorithms, it's combining data with the human element of store manager feedback we talked about.
That blend is crucial, according to the sources. The technology gathers the quantitative data, what's sold, where, when. But the store managers provide the qualitative insights. Customers are asking for X. This fabric isn't holding up. People love this detail.
The why behind the numbers.
Exactly. The design and production teams at HQ are structured to synthesize this blend of human feedback and hard data, allowing them to respond faster and more accurately than if they relied solely on algorithms or just top-down design direction.
So it's this fusion of human insight, incredible vertical integration, and ruthless technological efficiency that creates the Zara machine.
It truly is. Ortega didn't just build a fashion company, he built a highly tuned, responsive operational system. It functions less like a traditional creative fashion house and more like a military logistics operation, constantly gathering intelligence, adapting its plans, and executing with speed and precision.
He essentially transformed the unpredictable world of fashion into a predictable process of rapid response logistics and data analysis.
And that's the core of why it became the world's largest fashion retailer by volume. Not through creative genius leading trends or through overwhelming marketing, but through simply out-executing and out-speeding the competition.
And this operational brilliance seems inextricably linked to his philosophy of efficiency over exposure. Let's dig into that a bit more.
It's the guiding principle, yes. The entire structure and success of Zara is a powerful demonstration of building through quiet, focused discipline rather than seeking external validation or exposure.
That minimal marketing spend number, consistently under 0.3% of revenue confirmed by recent data, is still just hard to wrap your head around in today's business climate.
It stands in such stark contrast to how most consumer brands operate. But, as we discussed, the sources show that Zara's growth isn't powered by traditional advertising campaigns.
It's powered by presence and product flow.
Exactly. The significant investment in securing those prime retail locations isn't just about where they sell clothes, it's a deliberate brand statement. Being on Fifth Avenue or Oxford Street tells the world, without a single advertisement, we are a major global player. We belong here. It builds brand equity through physical presence and accessibility.
And the speed of the product turnover becomes the mechanism that drives customers back. You don't need ads when the store itself is always changing.
It's incredibly clever. The sources describe how this constant rotation of new items creates a subconscious habit and urgency in customers. They don't need an ad campaign telling them to visit the store. They are motivated by the knowledge that the inventory changes so rapidly, and they need to check back often to see what's new and grab it before it's gone. It's a powerful organic driver of foot traffic and online visits.
And this combination of speed and limited batches also gives them a significant advantage in terms of pricing and maintaining healthy margins, right?
It's a huge operational benefit. Because items are introduced frequently in smaller quantities and designed to sell quickly, Zara rarely needs to resort to the deep, profit-eroding discounts that are common practice for many traditional retailers.
No big end-of-season sales.
Much less need for them. Products tend to sell out at or near full price because of the perceived scarcity and rapid turnover.
So they avoid the trap of sitting on mountains of unsold inventory that eventually has to be heavily discounted.
Precisely. Traditional retailers often have to dump excess inventory at clearance prices at the end of a season, which significantly cuts into their profitability. Zara's model minimizes this. They sell smaller volumes of a wider variety of rapidly changing items, mostly at full price, resulting in much healthier margins per item and significantly less wasted product. This also helps maintain the brand's value. It's not seen as a brand that's always on sale.
And they achieve this without relying on finding that one or two massive it items each season, like some brands try to do.
That's a key difference. The sources note that Ortega's strategy wasn't about predicting the next global fashion blockbuster. It was about flooding the stores with a wide variety of styles, observing in real time which ones resonated with customers, and then quickly scaling up production or iterating on the successful ones. It's a model built on sensing and reacting, not predicting and hoping.
It's like continuous A/B testing, but with actual clothes in stores.
That's a great way to put it. And the enormous amount of money they save by not doing traditional advertising. Where does that go?
Back into the machine.
Exactly. That capital gets aggressively reinvested back into the core engine of the business. The sources highlight massive investments in cutting-edge logistics centers, advanced IT infrastructure to manage that global real-time data flow, sophisticated design analytics, and process optimization. It's an internal-focused investment strategy, putting money into the infrastructure that makes the system faster and more efficient rather than spending it on external image building.
So infrastructure over branding.
Completely. By the 2010s, their data network could literally track every single sale in every store worldwide, providing an unparalleled level of information for near instantaneous response.
It really underscores that this is a business built on operational discipline, data, and supply chain mastery, not on the ephemeral world of fashion trends or celebrity culture.
It's a model rooted in profound, almost austere discipline. Ortega fundamentally resisted the temptation and the pressures to chase external validation, fame, or celebrity. His obsession was internal, making the machine run flawlessly. He was reportedly more interested in inventory models and data reports than in glossy magazine covers.
So, to summarize this pivotal point, Zara doesn't need to shout its message through advertising. Its incredible speed and responsiveness are its voice.
Its speed speaks for itself.
Right. The very existence of its stores in prime locations is its advertisement. And customers are compelled to return frequently because the product mix is a constantly changing dynamic landscape.
It's a masterclass in achieving massive global growth through execution and efficiency, not through exposure or hype. And this approach is deeply embedded in the company's culture, shaped by Ortega's unique leadership style.
Which, just like his personal life, was anything but the typical CEO stereotype. Let's talk about how he led.
Miles away from it, Amancio Ortega was not a leader who directed from a distant executive suite. The sources repeatedly describe his leadership as intensely hands-on, especially in the early decades.
What did that look like?
He reportedly spent countless hours, not just brief visits, but hours inside the factories, alongside the designers in the design rooms, and most notably in the back rooms and on the floors of the stores themselves. His goal was to intimately understand the business rhythm, to see and feel how everything worked on the ground level.
He wasn't just getting summarized reports. He was fully immersed in the process, seeing
Oh,
it firsthand.
exactly. This direct operational intimacy wasn't just about checking up. The sources suggest it was fundamental to how he learned and made decisions. Even as Inditex grew into a multinational giant, he famously refused to have a traditional, formal office with a door.
No corner office.
Nope. Instead, he reportedly moved around the headquarters in La Coruña, constantly interacting directly with the people who were doing the core work, the designers sketching new styles, the merchandisers planning shipments, the logistics managers optimizing routes.
He was working with his teams, not just directing them from above.
He solved problems and made decisions by being beside his team members, observing the challenges and opportunities firsthand, rather than analyzing them in isolation from above. He strongly believed that the most valuable insights and the most effective decisions came from understanding the patterns observed in action, from being close to where the actual product was created and sold, not from abstract strategic documents or distant analyses.
But despite this hands-on approach, he also demonstrated a willingness and ability to transition leadership, which is crucial.
That's another key element of his long-term vision and leadership wisdom, according to the sources. In 2005, he made the crucial decision to step back from the CEO role, handing the reins to Pablo Ayla.
And Isla kept the momentum going.
He did. Ayla is described as a calm, highly capable, execution-focused leader who clearly embodied the same discipline and operational rigor that Ortega valued. Under Ayla's leadership, Inditex not only continued, but actually accelerated its global growth while meticulously maintaining the agile, responsive structure Ortega had built. Ortega remained as chairman, providing strategic oversight and guidance on the broader vision.
And more recently, his daughter has taken on a prominent leadership position, Marta Ortega.
Yes. In 2022, Marta Ortega Perez became the non-executive chairwoman of Inditex. While this might look like simple succession on the surface, the sources are keen to point out that Marta wasn't simply handed the role.
She worked her way up.
Exactly. She spent years working her way up through the company, often anonymously across various divisions. She worked on the store floors, gaining direct customer and operational experience. She worked in design and other departments. The sources suggest she learned the business from the ground up, the hard way, just as her father did.
That mirrors his own belief that there are no shortcuts to truly understanding the business's core. You have to live it.
It absolutely reflects that philosophy of internal grooming and ensuring leaders possess a deep, practical understanding of the company's process and culture. And this culture, forged by Ortega's example, has remarkably scaled across an organization with over 7,000 stores and hundreds of thousands of employees.
How does that culture maintain agility at such scale?
Inditex maintains a relatively flat hierarchy, emphasizing short feedback loops and empowering decentralized decision-making where possible to maintain that crucial agility.
Empowering those store managers to send feedback directly to HQ seems like a direct legacy of his early days delivering goods to shops.
It's a direct link, isn't it? Store managers are not just passive points of sale. They are vital sensors providing intelligence to headquarters. The organizational structure facilitates this designer's work in rapid weekly cycles. Logistics teams are trained to react to demand shifts in hours. This agile, responsive culture wasn't built through top-down corporate mandates or mission statements. The sources suggest it was built by Ortega's consistent example of constant movement, observation, direct communication, and focus on the operational reality.
And that strong internal culture seems to be the perfect complement to his external strategy of quiet efficiency, like two sides of the same coin.
It absolutely is. There's a powerful shared ethos within Inditex that originates from Ortega himself. Do more, speak less. This quiet focus on execution permeates the entire organization. It's the underlying reason they avoid excessive press, why they don't rely on celebrity endorsements or massive, hyped product launches.
While others generate hype, they perfect the system. They just do.
Exactly. Their system is designed to intimately sense and rapidly respond to the market's real desires, not to try and predict the future and then generate external buzz around those predictions.
It sounds like his most enduring legacy is that he built a company centered around an incredibly effective, replicable process, rather than relying on his own charismatic personality or public brand.
That is precisely why Inditex has continued to thrive long after he stepped back from daily operations. The system, the culture of speed and responsiveness, is the star, not the founder's personal image.
And this deep-seated focus on process, efficiency, and discipline seems to originate from an even deeper personal philosophy. Let's touch on that.
It really does. Amancio Ortega's extraordinary business achievements aren't just the result of clever strategy, they're fundamentally rooted in a personal philosophy defined by restraint, intense focus, and unwavering discipline.
Which is most evident in his famously minimalist lifestyle, especially when you consider his immense wealth, that $124 billion figure again.
It's striking, isn't it? We're talking about someone with that kind of fortune, yet the sources portray a man living a life of deliberate simplicity. He reportedly still resides in that same modest apartment in La Coruña where he began.
It's still there.
Still there. You don't see him flaunting his wealth on social media. No Instagram posts from private jets. No photos of luxury yachts and exotic locations. Just a remarkable, quiet consistency in his habits.
And even the simple clothes we discussed earlier, the daily uniform.
That daily uniform, the blue blazer, white shirt, gray trousers, no tie, no logo, is presented as more than just a preference. The sources suggest it's a physical manifestation of his values. It's a daily affirmation of his focus on substance and execution over outward appearance and ego.
Eating in the company cafeteria, too.
Reportedly eating lunch in the company cafeteria alongside his employees isn't just a photo op. It's described as an ingrained habit reflecting where he believes real value and insights are found.
So this personal minimalism isn't just a quirk. The sources argue it's strategic, too. How does that work?
Absolutely. The sources suggest that this personal simplicity and lack of fuss translates directly into his business philosophy. Simplicity, for Ortega, leads to clarity. By eliminating personal excess and external distractions, he maintained a clear, sharp focus on the core business. And in a fast response business like Zara, that clarity is absolutely essential for speed and agility.
No room for clutter, mental or physical.
Exactly. There's no room for unnecessary complexity or bloat, not in the production process, not in the product range, and certainly not in the leadership's focus. Simplicity drives efficiency at every level.
And he seems to maintain an intense, almost understated curiosity about the business, even into his 80s. Still observing.
He does. The sources recount how he's known to make quiet, unannounced visits to Zara stores. He doesn't arrive with an entourage or announce himself as the founder.
Just blends in.
Reportedly, yes. He just walks around the store, observing customer behavior. He watches what items people are drawn to, how they interact with the clothing, what they try on, and what they ultimately decide to buy or put back.
He's still on the front lines, gathering intelligence directly. Even now.
Exactly. He's not relying solely on data feeds. He's observing the messy, real-world reality of how customers engage with the product and the store environment. The sources emphasize that he believes the customer's behavior is the most important form of data, the only focus that truly matters. This intense dedication to direct observation, rather than relying on filtered reports or making assumptions, is presented as a key driver of Zara's success and its ability to stay relevant.
It allows them to react to genuine market behavior, not just industry hype or what the analysts are saying.
Precisely. It keeps the organization humble, alert, and constantly listening to the market, enabling them to adapt at that signature speed. And his own invisibility serves him powerfully in this observational approach. He can watch and learn without his presence changing the dynamic or drawing attention.
Anonymity equals freedom, in a way.
Exactly. The freedom to focus, to observe, and to ensure consistency in the business's mission without the distractions of personal publicity.
He also extends this private, low-key approach to his considerable philanthropic efforts, doesn't he?
He does. The sources note that his foundation, the Foundation Amancio Ortega, has made incredibly significant contributions, donating billions of dollars over the years.
Billions.
Billions. These funds have gone towards major initiatives, particularly in education and healthcare in Spain, supporting things like state-of-the-art cancer treatment facilities and providing substantial scholarship programs. But these philanthropic efforts are rarely publicized or promoted.
Again, the focus is on the impact, not the public recognition. Same pattern.
Exactly. The goal is making a tangible difference through quiet, deliberate action, not generating positive press or seeking public accolades for generosity. It's another facet of that consistent philosophy. Do the work, make the impact, and let the results speak for themselves, whether those results are profitable operations or positive social change.
So what are the biggest, most valuable lessons we can take away from the story of this man who built a massive empire in near total silence? What's the core takeaway?
Well, the core lesson is incredibly powerful, especially in our current era. In a world that relentlessly pushes for visibility, attention, and loudness, Amancio Ortega built immense power through profound, almost radical discipline and restraint.
Power through discipline.
Yes. In a business culture that talks constantly about agility and speed, but often achieves it through frantic, unfocused activity, he achieved unparalleled speed through clear structure, deep focus, and meticulous execution.
Speed through structure.
Right. And while many feel compelled to broadcast their every achievement and curate a public image, he simply let the results of his work, the success of his company, speak for themselves.
Let results speak. Those seem like the pillars.
It's a profound reminder that truly great things can be built with quiet, deliberate, consistent effort over decades without needing to generate constant noise or seek external validation.
Absolutely. Ortega remains an incredibly influential figure in global retail, precisely because he didn't chase the spotlight. He illuminated the industry not by demanding attention for himself, but by perfecting the underlying mechanism, the system that powers it. So let's bring it back to the core. Amancio Ortega wasn't the inventor of groundbreaking fashion trends. He didn't invent fashion.
No, he fundamentally reinvented how fashion moves from concept to customer. He took a single small shop and a humble garment business and built them into a global empire, not through charisma or massive advertising, but through unwavering discipline, operational execution, and an obsession with speed. Zara became the global standard for fast fashion because it moved smarter, more efficiently, and faster, not because it was the loudest brand in the room.
And lessons from this approach, for any of us, whether we're building a business or just working towards personal goals, what can we apply?
The sources highlight several key takeaways that feel incredibly relevant. First, simplicity is power. Ortega eliminated distraction and personal excess, both in his life and his business model. That clarity enabled him and his organization to move with speed and make better decisions.
Okay, simplicity. What else?
Second, execution often trumps ideas. While ideas are cheap, he built a complex system designed to rapidly respond to trends, creating an organization agile enough to adapt continuously, rather than just trying to predict the future. Get the execution right.
Stay connected to the customer. That was huge, too.
Absolutely crucial. That fast feedback loop from the store floor back to HQ was and remains vital. He built a company that acts like a living organism, constantly sensing and adjusting based on direct market signals.
And the fourth point.
Fourth, visibility isn't everything. In our brand-saturated era, Ortega's story is a powerful reminder that silence and discretion can be significant strengths. If your product or your work is truly delivering value and results, you don't necessarily need to spend huge energy trying to shout about it.
Right. Let the work speak.
And finally, culture drives consistency and endurance. From those very first steps in a tailor shop to a massive global footprint, the core DNA of Zara remained consistent. Listen, react, execute, and constantly improve. Ortega embedded that culture through his own example of hands-on dedication and focus, not through corporate mandates.
Ultimately, Amancio Ortega's story gives us a powerful example that you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room or the most visible figure to be a hugely impactful and successful leader.
Yeah.
You just need to build something incredibly efficient, genuinely useful, and reliably responsive, and then simply let the results speak for themselves.
His approach offers some genuinely timeless lessons, applicable far beyond the fashion industry. Move fast by staying focused, remain humble enough to listen deeply to your market, obsess over the fundamentals of execution, and trust that your work, the actual results you produce, will ultimately do all the talking you need.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive into the silent empire of Amancio Ortega and the system he built at Zara, here's a thought for you to carry forward. Consider Ortega's deliberate decision to remain largely invisible. His relentless focus on perfecting the internal process and execution of his massive business, rather than spending energy cultivating a public personal brand or seeking external validation. In our current world, where there is often immense pressure through social media, through professional norms, through cultural expectations to be seen, to build your personal brand, to be constantly present and vocal across platforms, what could you personally learn from his approach? What might fundamentally change, or what might happen to your focus and your effectiveness if you deliberately shifted some of that energy away from external visibility and intensely focused instead on the fundamental execution of your own work, your personal projects, or your goals, and simply allowed the actual results of that focused effort to speak entirely for themselves?
Something worth reflecting on, definitely.
Absolutely. That's a wrap on this deep dive into the remarkable world of Amancio Ortega and the quiet power of the system he built.